can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like $100,000.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Weiss here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs like the founders of RxBar, P90X, Quest Nutrition, Atari, and many more, and how they overcome big challenges in life and business. Our sponsor today is Rise25.com, which I co-founded with my business partner, John Corcoran. Rise25 hosts in-person VIP events and masterminds for top entrepreneurs all over the country, including many events in the e-commerce industry. This past year, we hosted events in Austin, Chicago, Santa Barbara, San Diego, New York, Sonoma, Vegas. I'm sure I'm missing a few. So if you see the value of immersing yourself with other top entrepreneurs to connect and collaborate and to get your business to the next level, go to Rise25, contact us and ask us where our next event is going to be. And I want to do a special thank you shout out to Azrael Ratz, who hails all the way from Israel, for introducing me to today's guests. And Azrael helps companies find their ideal audience on Facebook and create more sales. And he can be found on Ratz Pack Media, RATZ packmedia.com. Today, I'm very excited. We have the co-founders of Tenzo Tea, Steve Odell and Robbie Page. They run a matcha tea company based in Santa Monica. Tenzo Matcha Green Tea, which is interesting, guys, is grown in Kagoshima, Japan. So they're not getting it in like the local street corner in California. Their products can be found at various coffee shops and smoothie facilities all over California and online at tenzotea.co. And they cannot be found on Amazon, which we'll talk about. But a fun fact, they both played volleyball at UCLA. Robbie, I was reading up on both of them, but Robbie was named best server by the Association of Volleyball Professionals and Pro Beach Volleyball Tour at one point. And we have 6'6", and Robbie is 7 feet. You cannot tell by them sitting there, 7 feet tall. So thanks for joining me, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much.
So I want to get into Tenzo Tea and the benefits and how you guys started this, but I want to go back to how you guys met. And go back to the roots for a second.
Yeah, so I met Steve. First time I saw this guy was in Rochester, New York. It was my first ever volleyball practice. I showed up to practice, and his older brother was my coach.
How old were you at the time?
I was 14 years old. This guy was 12. He was 2 years younger.
So how tall were you at 14 and 12?
He was 6'4" with a 4-inch blonde afro.
6'4" at 14?
Yeah.
Wow. And you were, how tall were you at the time?
I was only like 5'5". I sprouted up like freshman year of high school.
Okay, so sorry, Robbie, go ahead. I just had to, I have to get your journey of height. Your growth also. Growth as a company and growth as a person. So
that's great. A great timeline to follow.
Yeah.
But so I met Steve. He was just this crazy, got a little 12-year-old who ran the court. He'd been playing volleyball for like 8 years at that point. Knew everyone in the gym. Came over, introduced himself with a squeaky voice. Hey, what's up, man? I'm Steve. Like 12-year-old Steve. And I was just like, who is this guy? But I knew he was a special person right from the get-go. And that day changed my life in a lot of ways. I got into volleyball and really changed my course of history for me.
And then so Rob and I played volleyball together in high school. Rob continued to grow, and then he went to UCLA. 2 years later, I followed him there, and we played for the Bruins under a great coach. And then
so go back for a second. So you're recruited by UCLA. You could probably go to a lot of places. Where else were you considering Robbie at the time? And then Steve. So, Robbie, you go off to UCLA. Where else are you considering?
Great question. So, volleyball, the best volleyball in the world, not in the world, in the country, is in Southern California. There's a lot of amazing schools like UCLA, USC. Stanford's also great. On the East Coast, probably the best school is Penn State. So I was talking to a lot of colleges. Penn State was probably my number 2. And I went out, and I got a really great offer to play for the Bruins. And I was like, honestly, it was like a dream come true. So I accepted that. And then I was playing 2 years, and Steve was coming through the ranks, dominating in high school volleyball, and he was looking at a lot of places as well.
Very similar situation, a bunch of West Coast schools, Penn State. 3 of my older brothers played at Penn State. So
Really?
yeah, I kind of grew up in the gym with the Nittany Lions, but opted to kind of pay my own course and go to UCLA as well.
It was really special as well because no one from Rochester, New York, especially the East Coast, had ever gotten a scholarship to go to UCLA, and we had 2 in the same gym in the same time period. So it was really
That's bizarre, actually. When I was doing the research, I just had assumed, since you guys were in Santa Monica, that you both were based in California, and then I saw you went to UCLA, did volleyball. I was shocked, actually, that because they probably have so much talent in California that they rarely bring in people from out of state, I imagine.
Right.
So did you have any pull with that, Robbie, with Steve going there? Or
I mean, I always would go in and look at the coach's recruiting board, and you'd see their top recruits and picks in the country and who they're looking at. And I was like, oh, that guy Steve, he's a special person. You should get him on the team. Like, we play well together.
Yeah, it is a
coaches like that too.
So when you guys are both in college, what are you thinking you're going to do after? Are you thinking I'm going to go pro in volleyball? Are you thinking, because obviously entrepreneurship, I know, Steve, you were a history major, and Robbie, you were, I think, like neuroscience or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, I was studying life science. My parents were doctors, so I kind of grew up in the field. It came easy to me. I loved problem solving and physics and chemistry, and it's all great. I realized pretty quickly that I didn't want to go into medicine out of college, and I committed just to playing professional volleyball. So I went and played a year professionally in Italy, first year out of school. That was awesome. I played 2 years on the beach professionally, and that was kind of the time frame between when Steve left school and then everything kind of joined after that.
So, Steve, I want to get to you in a second, but Robbie, so was there any thoughts of Olympics or anything else?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I played on a bunch of national teams all the way through through high school, through college. I was in a pipeline to shoot for 2020 or 2024 for beach. I was playing with a lot of the best players in the country. Volleyball is an interesting sport because the average age in the Olympics is probably over 30 years old.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it doesn't really your body. There's a lot of longevity in like your body and your knees. The sand's good to you, so people get really, really skilled after like 34 years old, 38 years old. So it was kind of like in the pipeline, it was like invest the next 10 years of your life to someday hope and dream to play in the Olympics,
Right.
It was really interesting for me because I realized I wanted to do something more right now. I didn't want to wait and just kind of hang on this idea for 10 years. I still think I could go back someday and really compete and play if I gave like a solid 4 years of training, but we'll see where life goes.
So do either of you still train and play?
We play a little bit, mainly just for fun, not super serious.
I mean, you could have your own sponsorship with your own company. Tenzo Tea. Just go pro just so you could wear the Tenzo Tea T-shirts and shorts. Sorry, I put my marketing mind down for a second. Like, forget about the pro thing. Like, just, Tenzo Tea sponsored AVP. But, so, Robbie, or Steve, for you, you're a history major, right? So what are you thinking you're going to do?
Oh, man. So first 2 years of school, I really had no idea. Probably something similar to Rob. Or like, oh, you always have coaching as a fallback.
Do you want to go pro at the time? I mean, are you thinking?
I didn't really think I was good enough. Maybe, but no, it wasn't a very serious focus.
Yeah.
But then I took this course at UCLA with this professor named Steven Peterson called Entrepreneurial Communications. And I got like the highest score in the class, pretty much got 100% in the course. And I really loved it. It was the first school class that I loved. So I had a bad habit of not going to classes. And
if I was a history major, I would not love it either, personally. But
so I was just not really into school, and then took this class. After the class, went home for summer vacation and started my first company with my cousins. And
this is the Odd Job Bros company?
Odd Job Bros, yeah.
Okay.
After that.
So tell me about that. So, because I feel like your journey after college, you started a number of companies kind of that led you into Tenzo Tea. So, Odd Job Bros, you decided to start a company. Most people aren't doing that right out of college, right? What do you decide to do?
Actually.
What's that?
I was still in school.
Oh, you were still in school. Okay.
Yeah, so I was just home for the summer, and we had 6 weeks with my cousins, and my parents handed Jimmy, who's one of my cousins, an application to Burger King and said, "You guys need to get jobs." And so he told me this, and I was like, "Hell no! Let's meet at Starbucks tomorrow morning. We won't leave until we have a plan of how we're going to make money and grow a business." So we all met at Starbucks. We actually wore full suits just to like show the seriousness, and then we sat there for 5 or 6 hours. Came away with like 3 to 4 ideas. We're going to start volleyball clinics, sell T-shirts, do random jobs. And then we looked into the volleyball clinics. It was a little too expensive. So we didn't have a lot of money. And the T-shirts were even too much. And so we put $120 into a printer and some paper, and then designed flyers, and then paid the mailman $10 more to distribute them all over kind of the local area.
That's a good hack. Pay the mailman $10 or $20. But
it is illegal. You can't use federal services without.
Well, it's illegal for him, probably not for you, right?
Yeah. So he got fired
because of that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So that was pretty crazy, but the Odd Job Bros taught me like a lot of really important things about how to grow a company. We didn't do really any marketing after that. It was pretty much all word of mouth, and quality was our number one thing. So we would always guarantee 100% quality satisfaction with customers. Kind of like 2 really big lessons there. And
I think a lot of times people leave out a rock solid guarantee. So what did you have at Odd Job Bro? What was your guarantee to the customers?
Love our quality of work, and it'd be exactly what they wanted. So we were doing like gardening or moving, and we'd ask like, "Is this exactly what you want to? Is there anything else we can do? We're happy to do it. Just let us know. We want to make sure that we are 100% good." And every time, if they needed something else, we would do it. And then it's so easy. It seems so easy, but most people don't do it, and it makes a huge difference. Because then that person will tell another person, and they'll tell another person, and that chain kind of spirals out.
So what was next? Odd Job Bros, and then you started another company.
Went right back to school, and did like a really short stunt. So I was like really like thinking of ideas at this point, and did a short stunt with a moving company. Then did an on-demand printing company that was a little more serious. So we were delivering papers like an Uber for printing all around campus. We did like 300 or 400 orders over the course of a few months, and then kind of just realized that the market wasn't there, and it didn't really make sense. And the big lesson with the printing company was that you want to kind of follow the way the world's working, and like look at general trends and have those work in your favor rather than try to fight against that. And so the world is moving towards digital. Doesn't make sense to start a printing company, and that's one of the ideas that we adopted when we started Tenzo. And then going from that, I was selling portable chargers online with another great entrepreneur named Alejandro Rioja. And we were doing a lot of sales, mainly through SEO. That's when I got my first kind of dip in the e-commerce space. And one of the big lessons there was that we needed to win a new customer every single time, because no one needs 2 portable chargers. Yeah. That's another.
I just bought 2 actually, but I bought one for someone else.
Gosh.
But yes. Yeah, it's not consumable, right? So Tenzo Tea, like exactly. Lifetime value of a customer is probably a lot higher.
Right. So that's kind of like a big thing so taking a lot of those old past experiences, working them into Tenzo is really, really valuable going forward.
So Tenzo, where's the idea come from?
A lot of things.
Yeah, I'm kind of a big believer in just like the intuition of life, and kind of just like knowing what makes sense at the right time and recognizing opportunity. But summer of 2016, Steve has dropped out of UCLA at this point. I'm playing professional volleyball. We're both like, actually, it was funny you mentioned the sponsorship thing. So I was like, oh man, it'd be so cool to have my own company to sponsor me, And like we're talking about building a business. What could we do? We really wanted to provide a ton of value. And we wanted it to be like a new kind of opportunity so we can make for ourselves and we could win. Those are like our main 3 kind of categories we're looking for in a business. So we just started learning and reading, and Steve's a massive reader. He just reads all the time. So he got me hooked, and we just sat in a 2-bedroom apartment, and I'd play volleyball in the morning, and we just learn and grind and read the rest of the day. Reading business books, marketing books. I was learning graphic design, photography, a lot of that kind of the realm of the marketing and branding realm. And
Steve, when you tell me about the decision to drop out.
Yeah, I mean, it was so Rob has this like funny story, but like I never ever liked to study for school, and I would literally never go to class, and I would beat 90% of the kids in the class. And like I'd write papers very last minute and do fine, and I was also like extremely invested in learning outside of class. So I like am obsessed with learning.
Here's a funny story. So we're in the med school library. I'm studying all day for this massive, I think it was a physics or life science exam, like 10-hour library day.
I'm more on your side, Robbie. That's more my personality. But yes,
have to do, for that kind of major. So like we're studying. My friend Daniela Abrams, she's amazing too. Working all day, and about 5 or 6 hours in, it's like probably about dinner time. I look over, I'm like, "Hey Steve, don't you have a final tomorrow?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "What are you reading?" And he's like, "Oh, it's like a biography on some amazing individual. You're reading it all day long." I'm like, "Dude, like when are you going to start studying?" He's like, "Yeah, it's like a 9 a.m. exam. I'll probably open my books like 7 or 8, see what I can do." I'm like, "What? How is this possible?" But it was funny. It was like that's what he's just always pursuing, like outside knowledge. It's kind of the main theme there, like generalizing, learning the bigger picture things. I think is really important.
So your parents, Steve, what do they do? Were they entrepreneurs?
No. My mom is a teacher and my dad's a businessman. They are both very conservative, and so I actually didn't tell them that I dropped out.
They still don't know.
No, they know.
I'm just kidding.
And flew back for like spring break, they thought, and told them, I was like, "Hey guys, gotta tell you something." In the living room is a really terrible conversation. But Tim Ferriss says like you can judge the quality of a man or woman by the amount of tough conversations they've had. So that was kind of one of that.
Was that a tough decision for you to drop out?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. It's a massive risk, and it was extremely negative from an outside standpoint for a while, meaning like all my friends didn't think that it would work. My parents didn't think it would work. I didn't get to like walk the stage of graduation at UCLA. But all my friends.
Were you at the time? Were you working on Tenzo, or like when you dropped out? What were you working on?
I was learning how to program and reading. Like Rob said, I loved the library, and I'd just go in there all day and read and learn and test stuff, break stuff. I was learning how to I was email scraping and kind of just doing like crazy entrepreneurial stuff. Really a lot with my buddy Alejandro, and then with Rob.
So you were just figuring out what the next thing was.
Yeah, exactly.
You didn't know what it was.
No, I mean this might sound weird, but like really I just dropped out of pure sheer belief in myself that I was going to do it and make it work no matter what, and there's nothing that can stop me. Yeah.
And so do you then move back to New York, or do you stay in California?
No, I stayed in California. Moved in on this guy's couch.
And so that's stressful. I find it stressful. You seem that you were maybe at peace with it.
No, well, I mean, it is extremely stressful.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I really can't take for granted. Like Rob has given me a ton of support, and that's like an amazing thing, an opportunity. And it really wouldn't have been possible without that. And like just giving the opportunity to learn those first 6 months was like really critical. And I mean, we have never been on this mission to like make a lot of money or try to become like world famous billionaires, It's always been like, we want to build a great company that lasts a long time, that positively impacts a ton of people throughout the world. And so just kind of taking that time early to learn was really critical, even though it may seem like tough. And it was really hard. And I might seem at peace with it now, but like I had this crazy entrepreneurial schedule. So like I would go to bed at midnight and try to get up at 4 a.m. every single morning. Yeah. And then had my whole day structured of like 2 hours of programming, 2 hours of reading, 2 hours of business general, 2 more hours of programming, review for 2 hours, like just like that, like all day. And
tell me about the routine a little bit. So at this point, Robbie, you're playing professional volleyball.
Yes.
Okay.
I was on the beach still.
And so, Steve, you have this crazy regimen. Okay, how did you come up with that?
No, I iterated on it. So, I mean, that was like my third iteration of the Ultimate Entrepreneur Regiment.
Okay.
That's fine.
Yeah, and I was reading all these books and like Ben Franklin, all like the best guys in history, and I have like a whole nother thing I could talk about that's kind of unrelated, but I was like studying influential people and people that I really admire, and the routine is really important for learning and fast-paced learning and learning really, really well, which is like a major distinction in entrepreneurship and school.
Yeah.
Because like everything that I do as an entrepreneur for Tenzo needs to be 100% accurate. Like there's no like games, like you don't get an A, a B, a C, a D, or a failure. You need to get A's like every single day. You need to show up and get an A. So I had to like learn how to do that really well, really fast and efficiently.
Yeah. You remind me of a good friend of mine, Michael Simmons, who has a group that talks about people how you can learn better. It's really interesting. You guys will get along. I'll have to introduce you at some point. So talk about your top, like someone's thinking, this sounds great. I want to learn from some of the top minds too. Who are the top, like where should people start? Who are the top 5? You mentioned Benjamin Franklin.
Franklin, Aristotle, Nietzsche, Alexander Hamilton. I think those are probably 4 guys you should definitely read. I call them the Ubermenschen. It's a phrase taken from Nietzsche, which means that, like a mensch is like an honorable or a good human being. The Ubermensch is like the superhuman version. This is all from Thus Spoke Zarathustra. And then I decided to take that group of people, and I have a few more like Newton, Da Vinci, the list goes on. And then I would study their primary works, like read first person, and then also their biographies. And kind of look for commonalities or patterns between them and try to adopt them into my own life.
So when you look back on this entrepreneurial schedule, right? Some people have a workout routine. They'll do, 10 minutes of cardio, 10 minutes of – you had this entrepreneurial workout regimen. What, looking back, was you think the most important? It's always kind of like a 80-20 thing, right? What was most important for you out of the regimen?
I don't know. I think – this might sound kind of lame, but I think it's really just consistency. Like most people would just give up or stop at a certain point, and the will to keep going is really important. And like that may sound like, oh, it's so obvious, but a lot of people just flat out don't do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious at the time, but looking back, sometimes it's not obvious as far as what kept you going, right? Because at this point, you're on Robbie's couch, you're seeing he's a professional volleyball player, and it's not necessarily easy to keep going. So what kept you going at the time?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I think it's just,
a lot of what I really loved.
I
know. I mean, it was just like it just had to happen. Like there was. Yeah. I mean, Steve was on my couch from humble beginnings. Like it was. We just kind of both felt the place of just we needed to pursue something great and make it work, and like it was, there was like never an option. It was just like we need to be the best, and we had both kind of learned how to learn at this point, and we learned how to master a skill. I think volleyball taught us a lot about mastering a skill, which is a really important concept to like really like grasp early in your life. Is like seeing something, you can be good at something, but then when you train against the best people in the world every day on a court, you start to learn these crazy like intricacies of a game or a skill, and then like the difference between someone who's like a Olympic class athlete versus professional versus college. Yeah, it's very subtle. It's not like anything crazy different. Everyone's jumping 45 inches. Everyone touches 12 feet. It's
mental.
It's a lot of mental, and it's a lot of just like fine tuning and like really mastering something. So at that point, we knew we had to master new things, and we were basically starting from scratch. Yeah. Like we didn't study business. We didn't really do anything. I had never done any branding or marketing or design. Steve had never done any finance or operations. So we just kind of started diving in and just trying to devour information that would lead us in the right direction in a way.
Yeah. So Robbie, how do you mentally prepare, a professional athlete? Like that's a good distinction, right? When you get to a certain level, there's a lot of talented people out there, but what separates them is probably, there's skill, there's a work ethic, and there's the mental piece.
Totally.
What do you do? What did you do to prepare mentally when you're going up against, some of the best people in the U.S., maybe the world?
Yeah, first of all, like when you're playing against the best, you have to do your homework. I mean, you have to do your research, you got to do your research, got to watch them play, learn their tendencies. Everyone has tendencies, whether it's in life or business or sports. Like people are pretty predictable.
Yeah.
The best people have a number of predictable talents that they won't always, like, for example, in volleyball, like average players have 2 to 3 hits. Good players have 8 to 10. So like you got to really know your opponent. I'd say too, like mentally, one of the biggest things I learned was from a book called Relentless by Tim Grover.
Yeah, love that one, yeah.
Amazing mindset book. And what I think one of the most important things I learned playing in Italy too is just when you're competing, you need to quiet your mind. At a certain point, you've done all the preparation you can do. Overthinking is like your worst enemy in a lot of ways. When you're on the court or when you're in a meeting, right now in a podcast, you know, I'm not thinking about like some crazy outside of the box thing or how I can do this. It's like, no, we're here having a conversation. Like, be in the moment, be present, and really just kind of let all of your preparation speak for itself.
Yeah.
So when you let your like, it's almost a subconscious thing. The brain. If you let my best volleyball I ever played is when your brainstem takes over. You're in the match. It's almost like people call it like in the zone or like blacking out.
Flow.
It's like a flow state where everything kind of works and you're not thinking, you're just doing. And that's like really where people perform their best.
How do you get in the zone or flow?
That's a good question too. There's a lot of different ways. I think for me, a lot of it is honestly just the stage. The higher the stage, the easier it is when you get in the zone. If you come into a practice and you're just kind of like dicking around and goofing off, you're never going to find the zone. But if you like come to work and you come prepared to win, you're automatically, you're in a good place. Some good music.
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, like, I totally agree about this like level of like kind of pressure or competition. And like, I have literally been getting in the flow state like almost every single day, like multiple times per day sometimes. And literally all you need to do is, like Rob mentioned it, but it was really subtle, but it's so important. It's like quieting your mind. And
how do you do that? It's hard to do with all the technology and everything going on. What do you do to quiet everything around you?
I had some really weird habits like growing up. Like before I would sleep, like that's how I fell asleep every night. Was I'd build like a brick well around myself.
Mentally, you're just
and then like after a while, like once the bricks are around, like fully surrounded, then I would just shut off. And that was like just.
How did you come to that? How did you even come to doing that?
I honestly don't. It was probably something I read when I was a lot younger. But I mean, like, you can't sleep if your brain keep thinking about things. So if you just stop thinking, then you can sleep.
I think it's interesting too. Like, we both have done a pretty good amount of yoga at this point. And at UCLA, our coaching staff was really big on meditation and visualization. Yeah. So every day before practice, we'd all stand on the line, close our eyes, and our coach would talk us through a deep breathing visualization exercise where you would literally like. I mean, your mirror neurons and like your motor cortex can actually like replicate and like perform actions without even moving. I think visualization is an amazing opportunity that not a lot of people know about or really take advantage of.
Totally.
Even for a meeting or a speech or a game or like whatever you're doing the night before, if you can walk through your head of what's going to happen and put yourself in the position of what you're going to see and feel and taste and touch, then you're way more prepared for the coming event or coming day and perform really well. Yeah,
it is. It's overlooked, visualization. So talk about, Robbie, for a second. You're in a game. You're in a match, right? And you make a mistake. Like sometimes being in flow, being in the zone, I feel for me or I've seen other people, when they make a mistake, then they get in their own head, right? And they, like you said, the best thing is just to stop thinking and do. What do you do to get back into that state after you make a mistake? 'Cause it's so easy. You see someone who misses a few free throws, and all of a sudden you're just thinking, "Oh, I don't want to miss another free throw," and then that causes you to miss more free throws, right? Or whatever sport. So
I think like the biggest thing in that point is like as soon as you recognize that you missed and it was a problem, you're already in the wrong place. Like it's just a probability game. A lot of points. Like I mean, free throw wise. Steph Curry is going to probably make 19 out of 20 shots, but he knows every 20 he's going to miss one in a lot of ways. You know, like it's not like oh crap, I missed this free throw. It's like it happened, you know, like I'm going to hit the next one.
So you've learned to shrug things off. Go ahead.
Stay in the moment. I mean, that's the easiest way to think about it. Anytime you get out of that moment, you get out of flow.
I'm just wondering what your guys' reframe is in your mind, right?
Sure. I'd say like for a lot in volleyball, it was always like this point, like 1 point. Like all of life in games and sports are a series of events and series of points, and you can't replay the last point, and you can't play in advance the next point. All you can do is work on the 1 point you're currently working on. If you win more points than the other team, like individual subunits of a game, then you're going to win the match.
So your reframe is whatever happens, you're just like, okay, focus on this. Focus on the next point.
1 point. Just like win the next point. Like this point is all that matters. And you can really, it's about being in the present moment and just like blocking out what happened, because it's a really huge problem to think and like live in the past, because the past is already gone. You can't change it. No matter how bad it was. Like I've done some really dumb things on the court, like you look really stupid sometimes, especially in volleyball or in basketball or in life, But
Same thing with business.
Yeah, if you're looking backward and going like, oh man, 4 days later, how did I do that? Like, what was I thinking? And you're in the wrong place. You're not in the present moment. You're not looking at the next point.
And it's okay to be in the moment about your past too, to reflect on what you've done and figure out, hey, why this happened? I want to improve. Maybe I need to do this a little bit better or that. But like that's still in the moment. You're still thinking about that.
Yeah, you're learning from the past instead of living in it.
Yeah.
So Steve, at this point you're still on Robbie's couch. So how do you get to Tenzo Tea?
Well, honestly, I was just reading on my computer. I discovered matcha, and then kind of like a whole series of things like fell into place, all very like kind of at the same time. So like Rob mentioned this, like why did we start Tenzo? And it's like matcha is a very positive thing. It has a lot of health benefits. It's got the highest amount of antioxidants per gram. It's a much cleaner and healthier way to have energy. So that was like a good thing because we're giving value to the world. Number one, boom. Next thing, the experience from Kotu. I looked on Google Trends and matcha was trending far and to the right. It's growing at 25% a year, compounding the market size in the U.S. Have the world working in your favor? Check. From Flux Chargers, we had a new customer every time. With matcha, it can be a daily habit. Someone can drink it every day and keep buying. Check number 3. Next thing, didn't have to just sell online. You could sell the wholesale shops. You can sell the corporations. There's a lot of ways to use it in pies, smoothies, cakes, cookies. Check number 4, big market, and it's going to grow a lot. And kind of all these things really happened, and it wasn't like one, like this is the moment, like this is it. It was more like grow with the product, drink it more and more, get to like it, and really kind of embody the spirit of what it means to be a Tenzo, and then take it from there.
So then you say, okay, this is a good market. This is kind of embodies our values. Yeah. What do you do next? I think I was doing some research, and oftentimes we overcomplicate this. It sounded like you just Googled something.
Yeah, literally, that was it. Like that's how I found matcha. I was actually just reading blogs about like how to build websites better, and then like someone was like, "Here's how you build a site," and the example was like a tea site, and I found matcha. And then like, how did we find the product or like get started? Like we went on Shopify, like bought like a $5 like hosting through Shopify, and like Googled like where to buy matcha.
This time I computed one Saturday and it went through like 4 pages of Google for matcha and just got samples from everybody.
Yeah, it was honestly like we called it like a weekend project at the time.
It's funny. I don't know if there's a book by Richard Koch, The Star Principle. And what you're describing there's a lot of similarities to like how he, invested whatever. I don't remember his investments, but most people would get 3 out of 10, and his were 6 out of 10 as far as people just taking off in value. And your thought process sounds very similar to how he chooses a star company to invest in, actually.
That's awesome.
Yeah, check it out. I think you'll enjoy it. So you decide, okay, at this point, are you excited to move? Are you antsy at all? Like, I'm actually getting nervous hearing this story. Like, you're doing this regimen. I would just at some point be like, okay, just give me an idea, something that I can actually start executing on. At this point, were you, okay, I'm going full force on this, or are you still exploring other things?
No.
A little bit of mix. I think once we'd really known we liked matcha and everything, we kind of were pretty much just full. It's like horse blinders, okay, let's go, But at the same time, it wasn't launching into a big, massive company we are today. We started very simple. We got a co-packer to make us samples, and we gave it to our friends, see what they thought about it.
Yeah, Rob still was playing professional volleyball until last May of 2017.
Yeah.
So, he was still part-time. I was doing it a lot of my time, but I was still spending considerable amounts just learning basics and trying to get those down, and then slowly figuring it out. But I was still on the couch. We were making websites. We had this company called Iliad Tech where we would build websites for influencers. We made 5 to 10 websites, nothing crazy. But it taught us a lot about programming, getting a client, web design, things like that.
So were you worried at all with matcha as far as being a single ingredient type of product?
In a lot of ways, it's really good. So, looking back on our first 2 years, I'm so happy we chose such a simple product. And just in terms of what it is itself, it's a good base for a lot of things, and it's not too specific. It's really widely usable.
It's technically non-perishable. You don't have to store it in refrigeration. So that's good. From a distribution and storage side, it saves a lot of costs and a lot of effort.
Talk about, because you were saying before, you have interesting ways of thinking about how you can get it to market, right? Talk about what you're thinking as far as online strategies versus the offline strategies. Because at the front of the interview, I said not on Amazon. So talk about the decision to not be on Amazon.
So, Rob, feel free to jump in. But basically the impetus for starting online was that you would get feedback a lot faster, and you have a direct interaction with your customers. So one of the interesting conversations we had right after our first year was with Coca-Cola venturing in emerging brands. And I asked them, what is one indicator that makes a successful food and beverage company? And they said, in the first year, this company will iterate their packaging between 5 and 10 times. And I was like, oh, great, we did that. That's perfect. And it may seem subtle to us, and people may think, oh, you're spending all this time iterating packaging, yada, yada, yada. But it was more let's improve really fast based on a lot of feedback that we're getting from our customers. And if you're selling, let's say, in Whole Foods on retail shelves as a bottled drink, you don't get the feedback from the customers because you don't have the interaction with them. And the same thing on Amazon. Amazon owns all that data. You don't get email addresses. You can't ask your customers for feedback outside of their review process. So we wanted to own the relationship with our customers to build the trust, and we also wanted to be able to iterate quickly.
So talk about the changes in packaging.
Yeah, a lot of it at first was
I'm looking at it right now. That's why you see me looking at another screen with your website up over here. So it's not me. It's not me.
Our next production run as well, even better packaging. But we started off really simple. We started off with a private labeler out of Arizona. He would package our tea for us, and he put stickers on our bags. So stickers were honestly a blessing because we could just print new stickers whenever we wanted to change the bag. The stickers got slapped on there. Wasn't too official. Wasn't ready for retail shelves by any means, but definitely allowed us to make some quick changes. So we started off. I was just learning graphic design at this point, so a lot of the design changes were just really blatant flaws in graphic design and typography. Those were simple ones. Other ones were more about the writing, how the descriptions of how to make, serving size. We didn't really understand fully even the ingredients section, how to properly address FDA regulations. We were kind of learning and testing, but it was great to just start because it gave us a good point to iterate on. One of our biggest things was always just do it to the best of your ability, circle back, make it better, make it better, make it better. And it's still a process. We're still getting better with it. I think we still need to do a better job of just how to make it. It's a great product, really easy to make if you describe it the right way. If you don't, then it's just oh shoot.
So how did you come up with the name Tenzo?
Another great question. A Tenzo is one of the 7 paths to enlightenment in a Buddhist monastery. It's the monk that takes donations from the people and provides spiritual holy meals for the meditating monks. And the direct translation is heavenly monk in Japanese.
So yeah, I was
so it
gonna
kind of makes sense in terms of like Japanese roots of a product, has some meaning behind it. Really like the Tenzo Tea, just sounded kind of nice, alliteration there. Yeah.
So, Steve, you were saying, so Amazon owns the customer. So you're like, we want direct feedback. So what do you do then? Because Amazon's obviously a big channel.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, this was a hotly debated topic among our company, and we asked a lot of people for advice.
Yeah.
But we were lucky enough to speak with VMG, which is the premier CPG investment firm in the U.S., and their founding partner recommended that brands stay away. If you want to build an iconic food and beverage brand, you should stay away from Amazon in the beginning until you have a very strong sense of customer and a very strong brand. Otherwise, you'll get eaten by Amazon. So kind of our goal was to build that very large, high-impact, long-lasting company. So we stayed away.
So talk about then, because there's 2 then, wholesale, you're going direct to companies, and then there's the retailers you're going, obviously, Ezra helps with getting direct to consumer.
Yep. So the wholesale, which actually is really special about this, and I'm kind of hesitant to even say it, but it's very
Well, I don't
important.
edit anything, so if you...
Yeah, well, it's okay. It's just a little bit
Okay.
of strategy, you know?
Okay.
This is like important stuff here. But wholesale allows us to scale the brand much, much faster. Meaning that instead of having one brick and mortar location that maybe serves 1 to 2 to 300 cups a day, we have 130 locations that all serve 50 to 75 cups a day.
Yeah.
So if you do that math there, it's not even close. You put the brand out in front in each of those locations. That's like X number more people per day that see and get to know your brand.
Totally.
So it's a much faster way to expand the kind of the brand name.
And is it just because your relentless athletic background allows you to get into some of these? You know?
I'd say the relentless mindset
Yeah.
allows us to get in. Yeah, I mean, that is like one of the things that...
Because I'm sure they have a lot of very matcha, not just matcha, but every company's probably trying to get in to have them use their product, right? So I can't imagine it being easy.
It was definitely a long time in the works. We started, we were living in Long Beach when Steve was on my couch. Just so happened that one of the highest volume shops in all of LA was about stone's throw away from our house. So we worked there almost every day. We got to know everyone in the store. We eventually pitched to them, and she was like, "Oh man, like
No. But we did it again, and we went back the next day, and we kept going back and back and back and back and back and back and back, and we were friends with the baristas, and we knew their kids, and when they went out, it's like what they were doing in school that week. Like we were very intimate. Got the first location, and then just kept
What
leveraging
flipped
up.
the no to a yes? What do you think was one of the main things over time? There's some point where you obviously you get to know them, and there's some point where that no goes to a yes. What do you think that turning point was?
Really just an information flow. Like obviously, it may not seem like this now, but when we first started, there's like this inherent gap between like Rob and I, and then like being able to like run a successful business. They didn't really know that, and the owner had like a lot of experience with matcha. She'd been to Japan, done the whole tea ceremony, and she's like, "Why are these 2 random athletes trying to start a matcha tea company?" And they obviously right, they're not in the industry. They've never done it at any other locations before. So really, getting that first one is like really the hardest, and it kind of spirals down from there.
So you had to prove it.
It's
Yeah, we
also
had to
cool
prove it.
too because Portfolio Coffee House, the place we're talking about, is they have a lot of like just rain in the area. Like people know the name, they recognize them. So I think it's kind of the Uber strategy. You take over the big cities first, or you take over the big places first, and then you can fill in. You can leverage the high volume, high known place for the
Smaller guys.
Totally.
cities around it in a way.
Totally. And what about the online piece? What's that?
Yeah, I would say within like 8 months, we like just dominated most of Long Beach. We had like 20, 25 shops.
Just in Long Beach. The brand was built.
We would walk around. It was hilarious. Like people call us like the Macho Men. We were just so tall and just crazy. Oh, the Tenzo boys. Oh, the Macho here. Like
it's an advantage. I mean, I think it's a serious advantage. You walk into a store, you have someone who's 7 feet and 6'6". It's you stick out in not a bad way.
No, it's the greatest thing. Rob, everyone remembers Rob, no matter where we go. Like at Expo West a few weeks ago.
You can look up and see Rob. Like, oh yeah, there he is.
No, but he wasn't there. He went the year before, and everyone was like, "Where's the 7-footer?" Because they all remembered that I was with this guy. It's so funny.
It's classic. And for a long time, I always thought like, I need to play a sport. Like, what am I going to do without athletics? Like, I'm no one. I'm all this hype for no reason, But really learn to just, like, whatever makes you different is, like, what makes you special. And you have to really embrace that. It's such a positive. Like, it's huge. It's been such a blessing just even in networking events and just, like, business and meeting people. It's, like, really cool just to be yourself and, like, use it to your advantage.
I think, Rob, talk about the decision to – it's your whole – I'm going to say your whole identity, but oftentimes we do it to ourselves. We create this identity around, for you, I'm sure you've been playing volleyball for years, and you have this identity, especially as a pro athlete. How was that transition from, because you were doing full-time pro to the company?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, for a long time, I really felt, like you said, my whole identity was athletics. I spent my whole life training for the next step and keep working up the ladder, work toward the Olympics. For me, though, too, it's like it was a building step. It wasn't quite like changing. It was more like, boom, like I'm taking a break from the sport to do this, And you can really leverage it. It's kind of more leveraging. You're not saying like, oh, I'm quitting, I'm done forever. It's like, no, I'm taking a break to do this. And then you can you don't ever take a step back. And I still have a lot of connections in the game and in the sport. And I've tried to really maintain relationships. So I wouldn't say I completely shift identities, but I kind of been focusing on other things for the last 2 years. So that helps answer the question.
Yeah. At what point do you decide, and Steve you're probably like, yeah, I want you full time at this thing, No,
I was trying to get him full time for so long.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was hard. It was really tough. It was a really hard decision because, when I stopped playing volleyball officially, I was training 3 times a week with all of our top Olympians. Right in the works, getting really good, had great opportunities there. But it was really kind of the long-term investment, which I didn't see being all the way put together. It didn't make a ton of sense in a lot of my bigger life goals to keep pursuing volleyball. And we started with Tenzo, it was starting to make a lot of sense. It was really starting to gain traction, and I realized my time would be much better spent in terms of just long-term growth in my own self working on Tenzo.
At what point do you decide to switch? Is it, okay, when we get this amount of traction, how do you flip that switch? Or maybe, Steve, I don't know, from outside looking at him, what did you see kind of pushed him over the edge? Okay, now's the time.
Well, from an outside perspective, and this, I'm not trying to be rude, but it was honestly the volleyball professional leagues in America are incredibly unorganized. They don't support their players, and they're really honestly pretty selfish. And mainly just selfish in their thinking, meaning they do not make the correct decisions for the good of the volleyball community in the U.S.
So more or less, I was on the fence doing 60-40 Tenzo, and then there was this massive contract that made everyone sign a big 4-year deal, exclusive rights, really just destroyed the players, and it was a terrible deal. So I didn't sign it. I stopped on the spot. Just nope. We tried to negotiate. The AVP just said no negotiation is going to happen. We're not going to do anything about this. And from that point, it was very clear to me. I've always, like I said before, I love intuition in life, and you kind of play through life and see opportunities. A lot of things just make sense. It's boom,
they kind of push you to make a decision, and luckily you had a fallback I'm sure not everyone has a fallback. Like, well, what else am I going to do? And they sign it and then just keep going.
Exactly. That's what a lot of people did.
That's a very sad decision, though. But.
So, Steve, talk about you talked about the offline, the wholesale. Most people, go direct to consumer. How do you decide to get the word out online as much as possible with direct feedback?
Yeah.
How'd you find Azrael?
Oh yeah, so that's actually, this is all great. This is a great question. So around I had been actually reading a book about Ben Franklin, and I was learning about building a community, and so I started going to like the Long Beach City Council meetings and kind of meetups for local officials. I met this guy there who is a really good Facebook ads, and he's like, you need to get in these groups, the Facebook groups. Like there's like these kind of like secret entrepreneurial societies on Facebook with like a few hundred people, and everyone's like very helpful and collaborative. So we got in these groups, learned about Facebook ads, and then just started kind of putting money into Facebook ads, and it's like a vending machine and drives a lot of traffic. And that was pretty much it. It wasn't
sometimes Facebook ads are a vending machine. You put money in, you don't get anything out though.
Yeah, sometimes, but if you have, then you're okay.
So how'd you meet Azrael, though? Through these communities?
Yeah, through the groups. He's pretty well spoken there. He's like kind of thought of as like the go-to guy for Facebook ads and kind of any questions or advice. And he did some mentoring for us on how to build like good funnels, how to reduce your CAC, and kind of get more clicks and people to your website.
So what's some good advice that he's given you?
I mean, it's a lot of things. Everything. It's like websites are honestly, it's like a big math equation of just traffic times conversion rate times cart size.
Yeah,
I think. Just to say something that Avery is what I call him, but one thing that Avery said was, and one thing he does extremely well, and it's awesome to hear him talk through this, is as you go through your funnel, you always want to reframe each step from the consumer's kind of viewpoint and say, what does a consumer know at this stage? How do we tailor the information at this part of the funnel to what they know? And then just goes all the way down the pipeline from cold lead all the way to buying customer.
Love it. And content strategies, right? You guys have produced some videos. You guys have some really nice images. How do you educate? We were talking before we hit record on the information gap. There's a big information gap with matcha. Some people don't know what it is. Some people don't know what the benefits are. Some people are like, is matcha the same as, green tea powder? How do you close the information gap? What are some of the things people should know about the product?
Sure. A couple of things come to mind. First of all, like in terms of marketing and stuff, it's always great to be first. It's a really big psychological principle to be the first in the consumer's mind. So in a lot of ways, it's a large advantage if you can solve the information gap properly. Matcha is a powdered green tea. It's originally from Japan. It's been grown and cultivated there for like 1,000 years. Use meditation practice for a calm, focused energy. It's different than regular green tea because instead of using a tea bag to steep it, you dissolve it directly into your drink by whisking, shaking, blending.
Yeah.
It's just powdered green tea, really fine powdered green tea from the nutrient-rich baby green tea leaves. So
yeah, I was watching a video about some of your products, and I was looking on your page, and I didn't realize there's like a bamboo matcha whisk, right? And that you need this whisk. And I got in and I started watching the video that you need this whisk to make sure like that fine powder gets mixed in with the drink, right?
Yeah, bamboo is the best possible mixing device. Like it's those are all handmade. They're like 120 prong whisks. The bamboo is flexible enough that it like really moves well in water, and it really kind of gives you a nice frothy finish. It's awesome. Yeah.
And benefits. So most people don't know.
Yeah, we got to kind of be careful what we say here with the FDA and stuff, but
we could say supports, whatever.
Yeah, so it has a lot of antioxidants which help fight free radicals. Free radicals are notorious for being related to like types of cancer or neurodegenerative damage, and so they help. Really, just antioxidants help fight that and keep your body and brain, heart clear and healthy. It's also got caffeine, obviously, so it's like a cup of coffee, but instead of the roller coaster up, down, it provides a very stable, clean focus that lasts 4 to 6 hours, which is really nice because no jitters, no crash.
There's also a rare amino acid in green tea, and specifically in matcha. It's been much higher concentrations, called L-theanine, which produces like alpha waves in the brain, which are said to be the meditative state of mind. So matcha is really interesting in terms of the energy boost because it's a very calm and focused energy versus a crazy, jittery, spiky, feel crazy energy.
Yeah.
The L-theanine and caffeine pair very nicely to give you this kind of relaxed, focused, and energized state all at the same time.
So how is matcha used? How do people use it? What's their common uses? I think, do people ever use it when they're making kombucha, like matcha flavored kombucha or anything, or not really?
Not really.
Because from what you're saying, it's like there's some like steady caffeine in it. It has a nice flavor. It gives a green flavor. It makes me think, as I brew my own kombucha, so I'm like, I should get this and sprinkle the matcha in it.
If you haven't tried it, that'd probably be an amazing additive. Typically, we do a lot of just plain Tenzo Tea, which is just like matcha and water. You can put it over ice, or you can make it hot. Tenzo latte with some milk.
You can also
like
put it
milk.
in like a shaker bottle. So our water bottle here, put some matcha in. It has a little kind of like
I just finished
agitator, and then shake it up. You're good to go. It's super simple.
Other things too, we have
like a nice little bowl. Put in 2 ounces of water, a scoop of matcha. Use the bamboo whisk to whisk it up, and then pour over more water or milk, and you have a nice latte. Those are probably the most common 2 ways. Some people also cook with it, use it as a food coloring, healthy food coloring, or you can put it in smoothies and things like that.
In addition to, we have a couple of really fun wholesale places that serve our tea. They make matcha pies, matcha ice cream, matcha donuts. List kind of matcha chocolate.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So like matcha can be used almost anywhere and everywhere, which is amazing.
Yeah, I like it as far as, I make a lot of smoothies just to, if you want a nice like green coloring. I mean, obviously there's health benefits too. Love it. What do you think the future is? Right now, do you have a bag or do you have something you could show as far as what it looks like?
So we have these bags, 30-gram bags, and we also have a size bigger. In the future, I mean, we don't want to do anything crazy, and we started with the powder just to kind of do that really, really well. And our game plan is just to grow the sales, optimize revenue, especially in a local area.
Yeah.
Specifically in LA, and then try to just keep learning, seeing how we can take it bigger and bigger and bigger.
I mean, the advantages and disadvantages of something like that, that you can use it for so many things, is you can use it for so many things. And you could do so many things with it, right? Like you're thinking, we could just not do, my ADD mind goes, now we have the powder, we could make this powder into capsules or make, it's got health benefits, or make this powder into some product that actually is someone could buy and consume. Any thoughts on that? Or you're like, no, we're just sticking right now to the course?
That's definitely in the vision. The plan, though, is we got to get a lot better at what we're doing currently, and we want to scale this a lot more first so we can have more capital and more resources to be able to do a lot more things well.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to start simple. Like, that's a really good point you brought up, that there are a million things you can do, but if you try to do a million things at once, you end up doing nothing.
Nothing well,
you could say, yeah. So I guess in terms of our timeline, we're looking at powdered first, maybe make some flavors, healthy flavors with the powder as a base, move into RTDs, ready to drinks, energy shots. That direction,
So I always ask this. First of all, thank you both. This has been fantastic. Everyone should go to tenzotea.co and check it out, or support it wherever it is in California, probably growing in other places across the U.S. I always ask 2 things. One, what's been a low point, challenging? And then 2, on the flip side, what's been a high point or proud moment with Tenzo Tea? So maybe each of you have different low points, big challenges. What's been a low point in the business?
Mine's pretty simple. I mean, hardest thing that I ever did, was raise our seed round. Was first like legitimate fundraising for a large dollar value. Lowest point was about like any minute right before we actually got the money, and then the highest point was when we got the money.
You bring a good point up, actually, because I had it in my notes and I didn't ask it. Is bootstrapping versus getting funding. So what made you decide to get funding?
Kind of Rob hinted at this point, that's very important, especially in an emerging market, is to be first. And so we wanted to raise money to grow faster.
How difficult was it?
Extremely. First time raising a serious amount of money was really hard. I had to learn so much. And like I said, learn it really, really well. And that was kind of really the hardest part. And also like not knowing, because you're making all these bets that your company's going to grow and that you're going to move into an office and you're going to hire all these people and you're telling all these people all these things and you don't really know. It's extremely stressful.
How do you, at that point, where are you at with the company when you're raising money? At this point, you're already selling?
Yeah, we grew extremely fast through quarter 4 of 2017. Like 50 to 100x growth in revenue every single month. That puts us in a pretty good spot to raise more money, to be honest. Yeah.
So who do you hire?
I think revenue generation was the key. So we hired 3 people to generate revenue, and then one more person to help me on the ops side and support that.
So, Rob, I want to get to your low point, but Steve, so what are you feeling until you get that investment? It seems like you guys are doing well, right? So why is it a low point before you're getting funding?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we just it was all about the bets and the risks, and I felt very awkward telling people things that I wasn't actually sure of, so I just didn't know, and it was honestly just kind of scary. We weren't profitable. I mean, we were burning a lot of money, and we had hired these people before we actually got the money. So we were burning cash, and it was just oh my gosh, if we do not get this actually by this day, we will die.
It's tough with the physical product because the more you're selling, the more you have to invest in more product, right?
Yep. So cash flow is a big thing.
Yeah.
You can overcome that with credit lines and good investors.
Yeah. Rob, what about you? What was a low point?
I've been thinking about it the last 30 seconds. I think very generally speaking, I have a very short-term memory for unfortunate events and bad things, which is a blessing.
It's good in volleyball and in business, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. But I'd say I wouldn't pinpoint any specific low point. I feel like the entire stretch has been a roller coaster, no doubt, and it's kind of always about dealing with the lows and getting to the highs again. And I think a lot of the toughest things we've really encountered were letting employees go. It's never fun. Not letting go, just parting ways. It's always in the best interest of the company. It's always about doing things for the company. And when you kind of put it in your mind like that, it makes everything a lot easier. I just think there's been a lot of unknown, and the unknown is definitely a low point at sometimes because there's days when you just really don't sleep because you're waiting for things to play out, and those are I wouldn't call them low points, but they're just kind of oh no, we gotta just be patient, you gotta just wait, you gotta take your mind off stuff.
Ben Horowitz calls it the struggle, which I'd highly recommend reading for any entrepreneurs listening. It's very true to kind of what we were dealing with and going through.
Is that his book, Hard Things About Hard Things, or does he have another one?
It's in that book.
Oh, it's in that book. Okay.
If you Google,
that's a fantastic book. Yeah.
Fantastic. If you Google The Struggle by Ben Horowitz, I'd honestly highly recommend every entrepreneur reads that and just gets comfortable that knowing you're going to go through that.
Yes.
Sorrow too is another great principle, which we learned at
that's a Y Combinator.
Y Combinator meetup. It talks a lot about how when you first start a business, you kind of have all this initial traction, people love your product, it's going great, and then you enter the trough of sorrow.
You just stay there for an indefinite amount of time.
I feel like we're just starting to climb out of it right now, but it took us 12 months of just knocking on doors, getting told no a million times, having only your grandma buy things online, and not getting actual any customers. Like, it's just like, is this going to work? And those are like really uncomfortable places to be, but you got to just believe in your underlying self and your goal and your mission and just let it all go, just work on what's next.
So, Steve, proud moment. Big milestone that you're like, finally, I'm off the couch with the company.
Well, I think honestly, one of them could be just when I got my own bed. When we were paying ourselves when I had a bed.
At what point do you decide to get your own bed? Like, what point in the company?
Oh, we are still very young. I mean, we were paying ourselves like pretty much nothing, like just to pay rent and so I could buy a bed essentially and eat. But I think also like moving up out of Long Beach into Los Angeles was a big moment in my life. I mean, I had never had my own bedroom. So it's really cool to finally, now I have my own bedroom with a bed. And that was cool. But I mean, also there's so many, like Rob said, it's kind of like a roller coaster, right? We moved into a very cool office. It's nice to like have that sense of responsibility and kind of be able to like look at something like, yeah, we have this, we built this. It's pretty cool.
I'd say proudest moment for me was just when the first people believed in our mission and joined our team. Like Brody was a very early adopter. Like he came in, he saw what we were doing, he saw how just like, I don't know, he believed in what we were doing. And it's a really empowering feeling, just knowing that like you're crazy, but you're not that crazy, like people, it's like, it's possible to buy in. I think we built, it was really cool to see kind of the culture and the mission we built and like how people, like our current team is all so gung-ho and on board to dominate and excel. It's like a really powerful and amazing feeling.
Guys, I want to be the first one to thank you. This has been fantastic. I loved hearing about all the different journeys. Everyone should check out Tenzo Tea.co. Anywhere else we should point people online to check you guys out?
Yeah, we're on Instagram at Tenzo Tea. We're building a Facebook group. We're launching that kind of thing soon. So we'll be bigger presence there.
Instagram, website, you're good to go.
All right, cool. Check it out. Get the powerful effects of Tenzo Tea's matcha.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jeremy. Appreciate it.
Guys.
Thanks so much for having us. It's been amazing.
Cheers.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I'm feeling like $100 grand.